The SEC, straighten me out here, is going to penalize fans that storm the field by stripping them of their next home game against the same opponent. Help me with this, if you can. Walk me through this. How is this supposed to work? Caleb Calhoun, please hit the like button. The thumbs up button helps us bring more people in. And don't forget to subscribe, as our numbers are through the roof. And that's because of you. We love the family that we built here. The community is awesome. So what's the SEC trying to do here, Caleb?
They're obviously trying to stop storming the field. And I understand. Let me be very clear about this. I don't mind trying to stop storming the field. I don't know how you do it in like a situation where you got a mob of 100,000 people and only so many security guards, but it can be dangerous because there will be a moment. I'm just going to say it. We all know what happened with the Travis Scott concert a couple of years ago in Houston. There will be a moment where there's a bum rush and a mob. Where
I don't, and that's probably I do because I was working with a client in Houston at the time. But it's outside probably a lot of our audience's realm who Travis Scott is. So basically, he encouraged people to storm the field for multiple shows. They had stormed the stage, I should say. And ultimately, they did so in Houston, and it came with just absolutely terrible results. How many people were killed?
9 people died, and it was an awful story. Now, imagine that, but 100,000 people on a stadium, a bunch of really, really drunk people. Again, the Alabama one, it was lucky that nobody was killed. I'm just going to, like the SEC, they now sell alcohol. Back in the day when the fans stormed the field, they weren't even selling alcohol. They're selling alcohol now. So they have to do something. This isn't going to fix it, though. You think any drunk fan ready to...
Let me stop you there real quick. A miracle nobody was killed. A lot of people of Caleb charged the field, and nobody has been killed in the SEC to my knowledge. Now, I was a part of the charging the field. I wasn't charging. I was just a reporter trying to get the heck out of the way, in which a young lady was hurt very severely for the rest of her life because a goalpost hit her in Georgia. So...
That's serious on its own.
That is serious. That's very serious. And I have a strong opinion on this, which I'm going to share with you here in a second. But nobody's been killed. Let's not overstate it.
But it's okay. Nobody's been killed because it hasn't been done that often, one. And two, every field storming incident before Tennessee did it last year happened when no alcohol was sold at the stadiums.
Okay.
And which changes things a lot. I mean, let's just go to something like LSU. Could you imagine LSU fans in Death Valley at 11:30 at night storming the field after drinking all day? I mean, that's going to be a very bad situation.
Okay, let me share my story and how I feel about field storming. And I think most people that are a member of our YouTube channel or that check out offthehooksports.com would agree that I'm a fan first guy. I want the fans to have the best possible environment. I want them to have the better parking passes over the media. I want them to have big screens if that's what they need, because I think they fuel it all. So I'm afraid Mr. Jones and some other people are going to get mad at me on the message board, but here we go, and I want your take. When was it the Georgia beat Tennessee in Athens where they tore up the hedges? What year was that?
2000.
Okay. So I was there, and young pup Dave reporter had his recorder and in his bag and everything else. And I went down to the field. That was the first time in how many years that Georgia had beaten?
First time since 1988 they had beaten Tennessee.
Okay, so forever. And I remember this standing there thinking I'm going to watch the end of the game, because the way the rules work in college football is you can go down with 5 minutes left, I believe. I think the NFL, it's a 2-minute warning, but I may be getting them flip-flop, but one or the other. It's 5 minutes left. So a lot of times you would watch from the field. Why? Because the game's usually out of hand, quite frankly, and you want to be the first to get there and get your recorder and everything set up to do interviews. It has nothing to do with seeing the game on the field. As a matter of fact, that's incredibly lame to watch the game on the field. If you haven't before, hard to tell what's going on. You got the crown of the field. You can't see the other people's half their bodies. It's a terrible place to watch the game. And I suddenly felt myself being pushed from behind, not physically push with someone's hands, Caleb, but just this mass of humanity pushing me. And right when the game was over, and certainly Georgia deserves some blame for this because they let the players down on the field. At least I was a part of a fan, I was within a fan storming at LSU, and they at least tried to hold them back where it was a small trickle of people. Well, with Georgia, there were already 50,000 people, it seemed like, on the field, ready to get on the field. And actually, they ran out too early at one point. And these two girls who were in front of me, co-eds, I guess, fell, and it was all I could do, Caleb, to hold back the masses to pick them up. So I think you and I agree. It's a very, very scary situation that I'm frankly a little bit surprised hasn't gone south quicker to this point. My question is, how do you possibly enforce this? You can't even stop them from going on the field. So what are you going to do, Caleb? Stop them and say, hey, I need to see your ticket so I can scan it so we can take away your Alabama game privileges in 2 years when they're back at when they're back in Neyland Stadium.
Oh, no, that's not what they're doing. No. Tennessee would play Alabama on the road in 2 years. That's how they would do that.
Whoa. They're saying they're going to take it for the next SEC opponent, right?
No, what they're saying is if Tennessee beats Alabama at home and fans storm the field, then the next time Tennessee's scheduled to play Alabama at home, they would play them on the road 2 years down the road.
Well, that's even more stupid. How in the world how many people have to chat? I mean, how many people
fan is going to think that in the height of their emotions?
Well, and how many people have to charge the field?
Yeah, I agree. It's beyond dumb. I think the only way this is, I don't know. I don't know what the real answer is because the thing is that's so disastrous is you're going to have, I'm with you. You're going to have a situation where somebody's going to storm the field and there is going to be a catastrophe. I don't know how. I don't know when. I don't know what situation. I think there just needs to be harsh penalties for everybody who storms the field. Look, we've seen it now. Based on the investigations into the January 6th protest a couple of years ago, when mobs happen, it's not, if you get enough people on the case, you can find out who was involved in stuff. I think you got to start doing the same for people who storm the field. I think you have to say, this will not be tolerated, and we are going to identify every person we can who stormed the field, and they will face charges for doing so.
Yeah, I think you have to take it individual. I don't think that you can say, oh, well, 10,000 people charge the field, so let's have the next Tennessee-Alabama game at Tuscaloosa. Oh, 15,000, because I don't see how you can possibly catch them. This, to me, is a really, really stupid idea because I don't know. What if there are 10 people, 11, 12 people that charge the field?
Yeah, this is the SEC being super cheap. If the SEC really wanted to cut down on it, they would work with local law enforcement of that place, wherever it was, with the field storming, and they would hire private security to help out, and they would name and find every fan that did it. So come out in public, set a standard with the local law enforcement of every single SEC town and say, this will not be tolerated. If you storm the field, you will face charges of rioting, destruction of property, something like that. And we are going to find everybody who did this. Because look, I'm telling you guys can be mad at me for this. You can be mad at Dave for this. There's going to be a moment, if storming the field gets more common again, with alcohol allowed, there's going to be a moment where 10 people are maybe trampled to death, God forbid. And everybody is going to then come back and ask, well, wait a minute, how did this happen? There's no way to stop that from happening. It's going to happen at some point.
Okay, but the toothpaste is so far out of the tube, and it's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Over 50 years in the Knoxville area. Integrity matters. Your new unit might not need to be replaced, might just need a part. cityheatandair.com. Okay, so there's a lot of different moving parts here. One, the University of Tennessee sent out a picture of fans storming the field, celebrating the fact that, hey, Tennessee stormed the field against Alabama. It's the first time it happened since 98 Florida. So that's allowing it to happen. I mean, that's
behavior.
That's celebrating the fact that it happened, right? And then you have the flip side where I believe this is a sham. I believe this rule suggestion, has this been finalized yet?
No. This is a suggestion. This was reported by Sports Illustrated.
Well, listen. This is bull. Okay, because what they're doing is they're protecting themselves from a potential lawsuit. Yeah. That's what they put that out there, and they go, hey, well, look back in April of 2023, what we tried to do, and we couldn't get it passed. Hey, look, the fact that we're fining them $50,000, $100,000, $250,000, I believe, are the tiers. It's a CYA. Cover your rear. That's all this is. They're not really going to do this, are they?
Probably not. But Dave, now that you say that, that's another amazing question that I didn't even think of. Because you're right, Tennessee is on basically Travis Scott level celebrating people bum rushing the field, right? They are the Travis Scott of college football at this point with what they're doing. I got a question. If there's another field storming incident next year, say when Tennessee beats Georgia, and again, multiple people are trampled, and say, God forbid, there's a death, or 2, or 5, or 10, those families will sue the heck out of the university. And
I'm surprised they haven't already.
Well, nobody's been injured like that yet.
But the one young lady got punched by an Alabama player.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm sure there have been people hurt. I mean, I mentioned the Athens thing. I know a goalpost fell on a young lady and broke her spine.
She probably did sue the university, and she probably got a payout. But it's one thing for one person to sue because of a personal injury. It's another thing for 10 or 12 families to sue because of death. And I mean, this $500 million goal that Danny White has, it could be set back significantly.
But here's the scary part about me. Here's the slippery slope. So, okay, let's say 10 people sue the university because Mississippi State stormed the field against Ole Miss. Okay, so 10 people sue the university. Mississippi State is not a program like Tennessee that could accept $2, $3, $4, $5 million in legal fees / penalties. Tennessee could do that, and it would be a bump in the road. Mississippi State's not. So what do? Do they put up the big glass enclosures like in hockey? That's what scares me. I don't know what the happy medium is, but I don't want glass enclosures like hockey. I don't want security guards that are told you stop them at all costs, which means you could club them potentially. We could have another police issue on our hands. And I don't like the fact that they can just run out there willy-nilly. What's the happy medium?
Well, I mean, I think it's a pretty obvious one. Like I said earlier, again, I don't know if the university sets a rule in our stadium, you don't storm the field, we consider that rioting. Well, then if they do storm the field, I would assume the KPD gets involved at that point, say in Knoxville, and says, hey, you are breaking the law. You are technically rioting at this point by storming the field. That won't be tolerated, and you are facing serious charges for doing so. And then we've seen enough evidence with other types of riots in the past. You can find people who were involved in doing that, and you can use, you got all these facial recognition things and stuff like that. Now you can find who was responsible and bring the hammer down on them.
Okay, but let me argue the other side of that. How many people do you think of 102,000 people that were in the stands actually charged the field against Alabama?
I'd say 10, 15,000, like you said, wouldn't you?
I was going to go along the lines of 25 or 30. But anyway, what if 10 or 15,000, let's say at the minimum 10, what if 10,000 of those are your bigger boosters? Because let's say 15,000, let's say 5,000. These are just funsy numbers, okay? But let's say 15,000 charged, 5,000 were stupid students that were drunk, and gosh knows I've been there. And the other 10,000 really matter. They're donors. Are you going to go search through this facial recognition software to find the guys that did this and then suspend them or take away their season ticket privileges? You don't want that. I mean, you don't want those guys to go away.
Dave, I got a real honest question for you.
It's like the guy, let me just finish this real quick, Caleb. It's like the guy who has one too many drinks at the bar, and you kind of have to help him out the door, but you don't want to say never come back again unless he does something really, really stupid, right?
I got an honest question for you. A serious question.
Maybe
Do you
charging the bars.
really think there are 10,000? Do you really think the donors are the ones storming the field? Please, the donors have their own nice little box seats, like up, like in the best views possible, where they're sitting around with a bunch of other hoity-toity rich people watching the games. They're not with the hooligans storming the field. They're taking they're leaving and getting in their private limo, riding back home.
I think there are two different types of fans, to answer your question. I think there's the hoity-toity fans who probably have a little bit more dough in their pocket that they want to spend that are up in the box. I think there's the other fan who likes to be closer to the action, likes to be outside so they can scream and yell without getting hushed. Shh, don't cheer too loud. We're in the box. Yeah, I think there is another fan that spends a lot of money that sits in the stands. But for the most part, I think you're right.
Well, then, okay, you can say, okay, if a student does it, if we found out you're a student, you're expelled from the university. If we find out a donor does it, if we find out somebody else.
Expelled?
Hold on, let me finish. Or you face serious charges from the city of Knoxville, from Knox County. Okay, if a donor does it, you could say.
Take Spanish 3. I struggle to get through Spanish 2.
If a donor does it, this is an easy way. You either face serious charges or you pay a massive fine, one that's going to pain you that, okay, you're not going to do this again because you don't really want to pay that fine.
Listen, it's kind of like, and Smoky Mountain Red put NASCAR fence, LOL. It is kind of sort of like that situation. I used to cover NASCAR really closely, and it's kind of that situation. The cars just got too fast and they were going to fly off the track. The toothpaste was out of the tube. All you could do was a catch fence that, listen, it's a matter of time till the catch fence breaks. I'm going to go ahead and tell you, get ready for that.
But let me just say, from the other side, let's just go to another sport real quick. Malice at the Palace, the greatest fight in the history of professional sports, the Pacers-Pistons brawl 2004, where Ron Artest goes into the stands and beats up a fan. Ron Artest faced criminal charges, and he was suspended for the year by the NBA, as he should have been. Rule number 1 is you don't go into the fans and beat up a fan, even though the fan threw a cup of beer at him.
I'm not even sure if that's rule number 1, what rule number 2 would be.
Yeah, exactly. But, you don't do that. If we're going to tell the players, and we should, that you can't go into the stands, isn't it fair to tell the fans in the stands that you can't go onto the field?
I'm not arguing philosophically with any of this. I just don't have a good reason of how you fix it, a good way, a method.
You have to punish enough people individually who do it. That's your only option. You have to punish enough people individually who do it. And the SEC can use facial recognition, maybe. Here's we go. So this is how the university is absolved, because they don't want to come down on their donors. The SEC can use a facial recognition and say anybody who storms the field is barred from any SEC game forever, they get a warning and then they're barred forever.
I don't hate that as much. The SEC taking the blow. I don't mind that as much, because I think the SEC should be the centralized figure in all discipline areas anyway. So I don't hate that.